excellent.
Did you know that if you search Amazon.com for a leadership book, you'll have over 60,000 different books to choose from? See, leadership is a really popular topic, and of course, all effective leaders will we desire to grow. Well, today we have the privilege of not just reading the writings from a leader or talking about a leader, but we get to hear firsthand from one of the absolute best leaders today. Since his early 20s, Frankie Powell has had a passion to equip and add value to other leaders. He actually has invested over 35 years of his life in others through leading nonprofit organizations. He served as the lead pastor of 3 different churches and even starting an organization that helps to mentor and coach pastors all over the world. He's a John Maxwell certified team member. He offers training, coaching, and support for leaders. He's also very passionate about providing practical leadership solutions to the next generation of leaders. But much of my leadership personally and my life has been directly influenced by both his example and by his mentorship in my life. He really is the real deal. I'm excited for our conversation today with Frankie Powell. So welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Let's get started.
Well, that's excellent.
So, hey, Frankie, thank you so much for being a part of the Mind Your Business podcast. It's a really big honor that you'd spend your time with us today.
Hey, it's my honor, Brandon. I'm so appreciative to be on here, and I'm just excited about what you're doing. I get to watch some of your podcasts, and it's so excellent, and it is something that is so needed right now. And I think you're meeting a need, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to get your perspective because you have just a vast variety of different leaders, different organizations, and different organization types that you work with. So we're real excited to have you, especially since you are in between traveling. I know you're busy. You're usually in a different state, in a different country, but we caught you with just a little bit of time to spend with us today. So I'm interested to hear just a little bit about your leadership experience. And some of the background that you have. You've developed as a leader throughout your life in a lot of different ways. Can you just tell us a little bit about just your journey as a leader and how you progress from all of these different backgrounds that you have influence in?
Yeah, I became a leader for the first time when I was 19 years old. And of course, I didn't know anything about leadership whatsoever. That was in a church setting. And then when I was 21 in a marketplace setting, I was given one employee that I was supposed to lead. I think he stayed with me 4 weeks and he was gone. So, and then I, of course, started when I was 25 in my first pastor role. So, leading in those early days was just, I think, from instinct and from watching other people. I tell people I really didn't know I was a leader until I got into my 30s. I just thought I was a preacher. And but then very early on got connected with John Maxwell because he was a pastor at that time.
Right.
And he had a cassette tape club. And I started listening to those tapes and began to realize, hey, I need to do more than just prepare sermons and pray for people. I need to learn how to influence people.
Wow.
And so that's really where my journey began. My son, James, he says this a lot. I hear him say it publicly a lot. He'll say, my dad had me listening to John Maxwell cassettes when I was 5 years old,
Wow.
filling out the outlines. And that's true because I didn't want him to end up like I did, trying to catch up at 30-something years old.
Wow. And that's interesting because I don't think unless you're in the world of church leadership, which is where you began your leadership journey, I don't think people understand, especially when you started. Can you remember maybe what year that was?
That was 1979.
So in 1979, especially in the church world, many church leaders didn't think about themselves as actual leaders. The concept of leadership really was non-existent in that environment during that time. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. In fact, what I remember, we were starting to build a little building at my third church in Aniana, and a man came to see me one day, and he didn't like something that was being done, and so I kept referring him to the committee. And I'll never forget him standing up over that table. He wasn't mean or ugly at all, but he said, "But you're the one that is the leader. You're the one that gets up and asks us to get involved."
Wow.
I'll never forget when he left that day, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm not just a preacher. I can't blame it on somebody else. I've got to take responsibility.
That's incredible.
And so that's really when I began to search out and found John Maxwell, because, like I say, because he was a pastor and he had just started developing this leadership journey. And so pastors were jumping in because we didn't know anything about leadership.
Yeah.
We knew about theology, but we didn't know anything about leadership.
That's incredible. So at 19 years old, you're sort of discovering that you are a leader and that you have leadership capacity, and connected with John Maxwell that far back, and now you serve as a John Maxwell coach and mentor, providing many different opportunities through the John Maxwell organization. So tell me, what is that journey like, connecting from thinking, I discover I'm a leader, John Maxwell is one of the first that I find, and now today I serve as a part of that team. What is that like?
It's really exciting. I just started in 2017 and connected with his organization from a non-religious setting into a marketplace setting. And it's been, I'll be honest with you, it's been life transforming, and just opened my world up in so many different ways, put me in so many different environments to grow and continue to develop in my leadership journey. I say this a lot. Probably the first 20 years of developing as a leader till I was about 50, I think I only learned by making a bunch of mistakes. And now I hope that I'm learning from other people's mistakes and not having to make all of them myself.
Sure. Well, that's really incredible, because as you've developed as a leader, now serving and passing on some of those principles to other people. But I don't think people understand as well, as much as the rarity that it was for you to begin your leadership journey at such a young age. I think what you're doing now is really incredible, because you're helping young leaders begin to develop. But not only have you learned from some of the greatest leaders like John Maxwell and others who I know who have influenced you, but serving as a pastor. Now, you pastored across three different churches, and I know that spanned over 35 years. But significantly, one of your tenures was an extended period of time in the world of pastoring. Tell us a little bit about that, and about the leadership that you gained from leading in that context, because that's church leadership. Takes a very specific skill to begin to build for leadership. So tell maybe people who don't understand, what does that mean, and what kind of skills did you develop to be a pastor and to lead the way you did?
Well, I didn't understand this until about 20 years ago, but even John Maxwell today, in his books and in his conferences, he will tell people, if you really want to develop as a leader, join a nonprofit organization and learn to lead, because leadership is really influence. I know it's a John Maxwell saying, but it's true. You're trying to move people to a goal or a vision to bring positive change. And so when you are in a volunteer leadership position, you have no leverage. You can't hire and fire. You can't raise or take their salary. Right. So you have to learn. And I think I'm so grateful that my leadership journey started there, because I developed some qualities such as learning to influence people, learning to build teams, learning to value people, and realizing that to lead people, you've got to add value to them.
Yeah.
And then encouragement. I think probably the greatest quality I developed in that setting that I think goes in all settings and across all spheres of influence is just the ability to encourage people. And I don't mean flatter people. People know when it's fake or false or empty, but truly develop the ability to be able to encourage people. And so when I left that tenure after 29 years, and I took a little time to reflect, I thought about the great things that I feel I did accomplish and celebrated and why. And then I made a list of some things that I had cast vision for that I didn't accomplish. And in every one of those, Brandon, it took me a few days to do it, but in every one of those, it came down to the fact that had I built a bigger team, I would have been able to accomplish those. So I think I learned team building, but then I've even learned it more once I reflected on those things that I did not accomplish.
That's great. So 29 years in one organization leading in a nonprofit environment. And I think just what you said, I think are some key ingredients. You said adding value to other people to really be able to encourage other people and then seeing the value of teams. And all of that revolves around the good of people. I think a lot of struggle that we see today in a lot of organizations is that we forget that it really is about people. And having spent 29 years, and I don't think, so to put it in context, some people will dismiss the nonprofit world, maybe even a church when it comes to leadership. But, the church has a finance department, an HR department, a marketing department. Churches have, properties to maintain. They have assets and liabilities. Churches produce live events, live weekly gatherings that have all kinds of production that just like any other event. I mean, there's so many different layers to nonprofit work and especially in the church world. So your leadership has to be very flexible. I think you have to be able to adapt to different people. And just what you said, you don't hire, you don't fire, you're not keeping vacation days or 401ks, anything like that over people. They're leading from a passion, and they're leading from purpose. And so you talk about being able to inspire people and encourage people. If you could look back now and, like you said, take an inventory of your time there, especially 29 years in one location, if you were to break it down, you said teamwork is one of the main things, but are there maybe a top 5 that you would say are top 5 values that you've learned or leadership skills that you're now taking and training all of these organizations? Because you travel the world. You travel to other countries, and I want to talk about that too, and some of the differences that it takes to lead in different contexts. But can you see some core values of leadership that you're taking into other organizations that maybe you picked up from your time of just developing that over the years?
Yes. I think probably the top one is, and you made mention of this, is that it is about the people. Change your focus to people. See, before I learned to use the word add value, I said this, I said, build people. If you build people, they will build the organization. And so focusing on people, what they have hopes and dreams, learn about people. And when you learn about people, then you speak to the desires, the hopes, the dreams, the needs of other people. And so I think that's a value that I learned there and that I still carry with me. I believe connection, we call it now the law of connection, but learning to connect with people, with all types of people, from all kinds of backgrounds. And in connecting with those people, then helping them identify their passion and their purpose. And when you identify that, then helping them find a way that they live out their dreams, that they find fulfillment.
Correct.
Your organization is there to provide that for people. The people are not there to provide for the organization.
Wow.
And once you understand that, and they begin to live out their passion because they have found that with you, then they're going to do everything they can. Zig Ziglar said it this way: you can accomplish anything you want to in your life if you help enough other people accomplish what they want to in their life.
Yeah.
And I found that as a value, and it works across all spheres of influence. Of course, you said team building. I think that was one that we learned very quickly and studied very quickly. And you know, in the world of church work, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle, is very common in volunteer organizations, where about 20% of the people do 80% of the volunteering. But we broke that consistently for many years. I don't know, 10, 15 years. We had close to 50% of our people that were actively involved weekly in some kind of volunteer or a ministry or organization there at the church. So I think those are three really. And then I want to go back to the word encouragement, and that I believe that's a value.
Yeah.
And it's a value that every person, every human being alive, the ones you least expect, still need encouragement.
Wow.
It was a piece of wisdom I believe my dad gave to me. And he said, son, if you encourage people, people will always come back for encouragement, because that's what every one of us need. And then I would say this, and I'll just mention, that's why I'm glad to be on your podcast, is excellence. Do your very best. Treat people the very best. And everything that you provide, give it the very best that you can. Because let me tell you something, that values people, and they feel valued. And when you value people by giving your best and they feel valued, they're going to keep coming back wherever they feel valued.
Yeah.
So
I think you just gave all of your secrets away, because many times people will think, and I see this a lot, especially in organizational leadership and coaching, mentoring, and there's a lot of that today. It seems to be very compartmentalized. And I know there are some specific target topics or areas that need to be addressed within organizations. But the simplicity of what you just said, every one of those elements that you are taking and you're infusing into the lives of different people in organizations all come down to the good of people. And I love what you said, and I think, wow, this could change every organization, anyone, anywhere, is that the leader is there to add value to their people, not to have people add value to the organization. Because I do firmly believe that when an organization lends leadership and excellence and encouragement and all the good things that you just shared, when they give that away to their people and they provide that environment, naturally the people do what it takes to make a great organization. Mm-hmm. Everything is the overflow of that. So now I can fully understand your strategy for all the different environments that you're in, because you do work with a lot of different organizations. I know you work with small organizations. You still work with churches and pastors. I know that you work with large cities, with their administration, their city government. I know that you travel all over the world, meeting with nations and national leaders. Tell us a little bit about some of the different organizations that you do work with. Especially, I'm very interested to hear about your overseas travels and how you take some of the things that maybe we would think would be Americanized or in our culture here, our organization, but yet you're able to, go beyond our culture and infuse these principles even in other cultures. So tell us a bit about just some of the organizations that you're touching and that you're working with.
Well, it's kind of unique. I have been able to work with women's business organizations. In fact, I was the keynote speaker at an all-women's business conference that was in Africa. And there were...
Where is that now? Where did you say?
It was in Africa.
In Africa, okay.
Cameroon, Africa.
Cameroon.
And it was women, professional business women from all over Europe, Africa, Indonesia, India, New York, California. And I was the only male speaker. And I was the keynote speaker. And that stretched me a lot. But they're doing that conference and talking to them about purpose, finding purpose, and talking to them about how to navigate problems when they come, and how to make shifts in their leadership with the changes, because we're living in a very rapidly changing business environment, marketing environment. I was able to work with the prime minister of that nation, invited in to speak to his cabinet at a time when, and they're still in civil war, but at a time when it was very aggressive. And they have a split government. They have a native government and a federal government. And they wanted to bring those workers together and try to solve the problems. And I was invited in to speak on how to solve problems in that environment. Was invited in by the vice president of Burundi to speak there at a time when there was political unrest, and just talking about how to bring unity when there is division. And so I've worked with businesses there in Germany. Not long ago, I was invited into a business seminar, a leadership summit. And I was asked, I was the only speaker that actually did 2 sessions. It was a great privilege, great honor, talking about life-work balance and how we can salvage our families while we're building our businesses. And so almost every setting that I go into is some kind of different setting. I've worked with the city right here in the U.S., Mission, Texas, and was able to go in right after COVID in 2021 and worked with 700 city employees and about 150 directors and managers, and just talking there about how to motivate, how the managers can motivate their people. And so when you say that, Brandon, I'll say this, leadership principles are just that. They're principles. They're laws. In other words, gravity is gravity. I don't care where you are. And the law of energy, the law of force, those laws, those are natural laws. And so it doesn't matter what environment you're in, the law of gravity works everywhere on this planet.
That's good.
And when you take leadership principles, they may have different patterns or different practices, but the principles will work anywhere, in any environment, with any person at any time, if you work the principles.
I love that.
So that's what empowers me, as long as I stick to principles, not preferences or practices. Yeah. And I believe I can go in any environment and still make a difference and add value.
I love that, because I know, just hearing you talk about all of those different environments, every culture is different, every environment is different, every leadership strategy is different. So I think that's really, that's a great insight onto just working with anybody and making anything work. Seeing so many different things from across different countries in the U.S., different organizations, large, small, different kinds of organizations, government entities. Are there any common struggles or barriers that you see that most companies are dealing with right now? You mentioned the work-life balance. That's a big one for people right now. And many organizations are trying to determine, how do we meet this demand? How do we fix this? Because that's not our traditional setup here in the U.S. So as you travel and as you talk with these different leaders and you're leading, what are some of the common things? Because someone needs to know that's listening, it's not just us. We're not the only ones struggling with this. So are there some common threads that you're seeing across continents?
Absolutely. Employee engagement is a problem everywhere.
Okay.
It's not just in the U.S. There's low morale, there's low momentum, and there's a leadership crisis right now, probably the greatest leadership crisis we've seen. From 2020 to 2022, 70% of C-suite leaders left their jobs. Now, you're talking about CEOs, COOs, CFOs. I mean, now they've got a C for everything, every department. and they walked off their jobs, leaving a tremendous vacuum. And the reason is because the C-suite leaders are really held in a very hard situation because they got the pressure of those above them, stockholders or whoever is running the company. And then they're trying to work through a workforce that is unengaged, some even disengaged, and very few actually engaged and passionate about what they're doing. And so we see that. I see that very common. Another commonality I see is the senior leaders want someone to come in and fix their C-suite leaders or their managers.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long. If you talk to them for a few minutes, you find out middle management is not the problem. Everything rises and falls on senior leadership. Right. And I'll never forget hearing one guy, he told me, he said, my managers, I just can't get them, they can't work with my people. And a little later that day, we were sitting just having a meal with some other people, and he was talking about the employees that he has and his trouble in keeping employees. And this is what he said. He said, I mean, my goodness, all they got to do is carry windows and doors up and down flights. And I thought, there's your problem.
Yeah.
There's your problem. If you have that mentality, your middle management's going to have that mentality. Wow. You're devaluing your employees. Yep. So they are unengaged and they're always looking, unengagement means you're looking for another job. Yeah. And companies are looking for people who are skilled but unengaged where they are. So I think those are common problems I'm seeing, whether it's in Germany, whether it's in Africa, whether it's here in the United States, whether it's a small business of 5 people or whether it's a city. When I worked with the city in Mission, Texas, I saw the same issues even back in 2021.
Wow. So as you travel and you're seeing some of these things, it makes me think, especially when you talked about being devalued. I think that's one that is really big. With people are just tired of feeling devalued. I think people are tired of our leadership not taking responsibility, a lack of transparency. So do you think that, because I know right now 77% of our workforce say they hate their job. They hate what they do. They get up every day and they go begrudgingly. They hate it. So do you think some of these things are why people are hating their jobs? They're miserable in what they do every day? Or could you give us some insight to what you think's happening with that? Do you see that when you travel? Do you see that that's the attitude people have right now? They're just defeated in the marketplace. Absolutely. So why do you think that is?
Well, Microsoft did a survey back in 2020. And it was a global, and so did Gallup, do the same type global workforce. And they found that 70% of the difference that determines whether people are engaged or unengaged is their direct leader. And one of the things they say is, we don't hear from our leader maybe once or twice a year at an evaluation that they have to give. And so they're not valued. They're not recognized as a person or an individual. They feel like numbers. They're not given growth opportunities. And so they feel their job is a dead-end job. And many are there, a lot of reasons why they have to stay there. They need a paycheck, but they're not passionate about what they're doing. And I believe, and I love this, I want to just say this, and not because I'm on your podcast, but one of the first things I heard you say when you started your podcast was bringing meaning back to the marketplace. I not only teach this, but I work with a construction company. I work with another organization called Apartment Life. And I have seen this work, and I'm seeing it work, is helping people connect where they are. Okay, you're in a job. Maybe it's not what you want to do forever, but you've got to do it for now. let me tell you what can cause you to become engaged and become passionate again. And even if your manager or your leader doesn't do anything, is follow what that company is doing. In other words, every company exists to serve people. It's all about people. They're meeting a need for people. And then back up to what your role or what your part is and follow it all the way to the end to where that need is being met. And if you'll begin to see, I'm not just putting input into a database, or I'm not just making sales, or I'm not just running this machine. If you'll begin to connect it, I watch this happen even in Mission, Texas. When I talk to the water department, the people that just dig holes in the pavement and put new water lines down and check water lines and check water meters. I just talked to them about 80% of the world's population doesn't have clean water. How many people die every day just because of unclean water? How many children do not get educated because their parents have to work and they have to spend 4 to 6 hours just getting water every day so they can bathe and eat? And I just begin to tie them to the fact how they are allowing clean water. I mean, the look on their face, to watch their expression begin to change because they realize it's not a mundane job. I am making a difference. What I do matters.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think that's everything.
It's everything. It's why you and I do what we do.
That's right.
And so now, managers, leaders, and I'll say this: I think we're going to see the word management disappear. I really do.
Okay.
I think we're already seeing it. You're a coach, you're a mentor, you're a leader. And if leaders can understand this and begin to speak to this, I do this every week in an organization. I just speak to them and I begin to speak that. And I'm watching their attitudes change in the workplace, in the marketplace. So I believe that's overall one of the big things that we're facing today.
So leadership, we just heard what to do. If you're a leader and you're in this organization, you just heard firsthand what you need to do to begin that today. But what about the people who don't have control? They're not managers, quote, they're not leaders. They show up and they have to do the task that they feel like they've been assigned to do. But yet we all are leaders. We can all shape the environment. So speak briefly about what could they do today? What could they begin doing right now in their office, on their job site, to begin making a change or influencing the environment so that even their managers or their leaders or their coworkers could catch on, so that we can change this dread that we have in what we do?
Yes. Well, you got to see it's all about people. Everything we do in life that we want to accomplish, we have to do it through other people. We have to serve people. Tom Peters said, organizations exist to serve people, period. And I say it like this. And the first people an organization ought to serve is the people that are helping them serve people.
That's so good.
So you can go into your own office. Okay. First, you need to connect, realize you're making a difference in people's lives. And then you need to begin to let your time at the office not just be about you. It's not just about paying your bills. It's not just about getting a paycheck, but how can you change the environment? You do not need a position to be a leader, because leadership is influence.
That's great.
And you can begin to speak purpose into other people around you and begin to actually serve the people around you. And Brandon, this is not something that is just a philosophy or theory. I'm watching it again. I'm putting it to the test. Is you can begin to speak to people that are in position, begin to point out what they're doing right, begin to thank them for what they're doing and the position that they're holding. And when you begin to speak to that, you are here again, you're encouraging them. You're adding value to them, something, even though they're your leader, they may not be getting from their leaders. And when you begin to do that, you begin to shape and change their environment, what's going on inside of them. And when you begin to change the inside of people, you'll change the environment that everybody works in. You really are. It's a cliche today, but it's really the truth. You can be a thermostat, reflect the atmosphere of your job, or you can be a thermometer, or you can be a thermostat. You can choose to go in and say, I'm going to change the environment. I've got to work here every day. In fact, you spend more time. If you work 40 hours a week, I want you to think about this, just 40 hours a week. You spend more time with the people you work with than anybody else in your life, right, even your family, because you got to think sleep time. You got to think kids in the bedroom time. You got to think time you're out with other family members that don't live in your home, cutting the grass, all the chores, the grocery. You're not with your family 40 hours a week, but you are with those people, and you can make a difference right there where you are. And I say it like this: you can change their world when you begin to encourage and add value to them and give them a purpose. Let them see what a difference they're really making. And if you change their world, you know what? You're going to change your world, because that's the world you're working in. Yeah. And if enough of us do that, we can change the world.
Yeah. Wow. What if today, instead of standing in the break room and talking about how bad it is and talking about how bad the boss is and the job and the environment, instead of everyone complaining, what if everyone come together and said, hey, we outnumber we have one boss, we have one manager, and there's 30 of us. What if we all came together and we changed the environment, that we were positive and we were encouraging, and we have a lot of power. We have a lot more influence than we think we do. And I encourage people, take content like this, take this to your boss. Say, we need Frankie Powell in our office this week to come in and host us and encourage us and equip us and educate us on how to be a place of good company culture and of purpose and of passion in what we do. I mean, you have the ability to do things that make a difference. So start today. I think you could take some initiative and do that. So there's so many different people listening, and they're in so many different environments. They're in so many different walks of life, circumstances. Some are in leadership. Some are in the cubicle, and they're trying to figure out, how do we do this and how do we not hate every day? Is there something that you just take? Is there just a nugget that you love to give maybe every organization that you work with as you go? Is there something that you leave people with that you think is the most impactful, that maybe you would like to leave everyone with today, that you think they could walk away with, that would make a difference to say, yeah, I can do this. I can find purpose and I can find passion in what I do?
Yes. It seems so simple. I tell people this. Oprah tried to tell us to do this. Joel Osteen tried to tell us to do this. Steve Harvey tried to tell us to do this. But I tell people, start with a gratitude list. And here's why. If you start being thankful for what you have, it may not be the best, not be the greatest, but I guarantee you, probably somewhere between your house and where you work every day, you may pass someone who's homeless, someone who doesn't have money to care for their families, families who don't have insurance. I mean, there's so much to be thankful for. You're alive, you're breathing, you've got a chance, you've got an opportunity. And I tell people, make a gratitude list of what you're thankful for. I'm thankful I have a job to go to. I'm thankful that I have a company that is meeting the needs of somebody else, so I can find my place in that company. I'm thankful that I have an automobile to get to that job. I'm thankful that I have other people working with me in this environment. I'm thankful that I can make a difference in their life. And, it sounds so simple, but if you will write it down and start it every morning when you get up, just start with that gratitude list. Here again, you're changing what's on the inside of you. And when you change what's on the inside of you, you can change what is on the outside of you.
That's awesome. There's a common thread in everything you've said today. and it has all been from an internal place. And I think that's where all of us have to learn to get to, is we have to have a resolve internally so that it moves to everyone that's around us, but it has to begin within us. And I think that's great.
Self-leadership, we can say a lot, but it all begins with the person in the mirror.
Yeah.
The hardest person you'll ever lead is yourself.
That's right.
And the one you'll have to work the hardest at and spend the most time working on is leading yourself.
That's right.
If you lead yourself well, you will attract other people and you will lead other people.
That's right. That's awesome. Well, it has been more than an honor to spend this time with you and have you spend this time with us. I know everyone listening and watching has gained so much value, and I know that's your goal. Just like here is to add value to all who are listening or watching. Tell people how they can connect with you. How can they watch what you're doing from afar, follow and learn, maybe from your social media, or how could they book you to get you in their organization? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, Brandon, let me say, first of all, thank you so much for having me to be a part of the Mind Your Business podcast, because it's an honor for me, and I know your platform, and I'm just privileged to be able to be a part of what you're doing and in some way help you get your message out. Just on Facebook, it's just Frankie Powell. On Instagram, it's Frankie D. Powell. Follow my reels. That's where you'll hear some of my leadership teaching, and then my email address is just Frankie@frankiepowell.com. But if you'd like to learn more and maybe find out a little bit more, just email me. I'll get that email personally, and I promise I'll get back with you. And I'd love to come any way I can to serve you or your organization in any way. That's what I'd love to do.
That's incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What an incredible conversation with Frankie Powell. I know that added a lot of value to you. If you'd like to connect with Frankie, all of his information is located in the show notes. And as always, if this podcast adds value to you, will you do me a favor? Will you like, subscribe, and share this with other people? Of course, I want to add as much value to as many people as possible. Well, go make a difference, live life on purpose, and let's bring meaning back to the marketplace. We'll see you on the next one.